Before we begin, thank you very much to Hayden S. for joining the Patreon campaign over at patreon.com/TJOmega. So, I'm out of ways of thanking everyone for their support and expressing how many ways that it keeps the channel going and allows me to keep doing this, especially doing this daily. So, just think back to your favorite thank you message pre-video and just replay it in your head and just assume that is sincere today, if not more than it was when I said it before. All right? Are we good? Good. So, we have a debate today. So, in an effort to do things a little bit differently than normal, try to do a few different things around here, I thought I would put myself in front of one of the bigger debates in Transformers that has raged for a long time now, which is the worst episode of Transformers. Specifically, we're looking at Generation 1, but I would argue that the bad in G1, because of the era and because of how weird some of them got, don't really compare to any modern day bad episodes. We have to take into account that the animation in G1 was not good, especially when particular companies were the ones to actually do the episodes. So, yeah, I don't think any bad episode of like Beast Wars, Beast Machines, Energon, Armada, I don't think any of them reach the levels of bad that the two G1 episodes we are talking about today reach, though both of these episodes we will be debating are bad for their own particular flavors. So the debate is, which G1 episode is worse? If you go to TF Wiki, it will tell you that the episode B.O.T is the worst one. The literal entry for B.O.T on TF Wiki specifically says, worst episode ever. However, I've talked about an episode in the past that I also hate with a passion, and that is Carnage in C minor. So, we're going to discuss both of them today. Now, you will excuse me if this is a little bit visually boring, and you're just kind of listening to my voice and my thoughts and opinions. I was originally going to do this as a slideshow and give visual examples to everything I meant, but the more times I did a dry run of this, the more scattered and random my thoughts became. So holding it to a slideshow is not going to be appropriate. If you want to see what these episodes are about and see what I'm talking about, the episodes are free and available on Hasbro Pulse's YouTube channel. Please go check them out, or don't. One or the other. So we're going to begin with B.O.T, which I will admit I was actually not as familiar with because I haven't watched it in a long time, mostly out of survival instinct. But I did need to go and refresh myself on the episode in order to talk about it fairly, and oh boy. So the A plot here is that the Combaticons get destroyed in battle, except for Swindle, who ends up trying to sell. He ends up trying to. Originally he was going to like a human contact, looking for spare parts to repair his team, but he ended up selling his team's parts instead because Swindle. And guess what? Megatron didn't really like being one combiner down, so Swindle has a bomb put in his head. He has to go put Bruticus back together, and he gets all the parts back except for Brawl's brain module. That ended up in the hands of the three that you are looking at on screen right now. Martin, Roland, and Elise. So they end up building B.O.T, the titular B.O.T of the episode. Goes wild, causes chaos, causes havoc, etc., etc. The B plot of the episode is Megatron is making this like disruptor that he's going to have Bruticus fly to the moon and shoot the moon out of orbit, so Megatron can then put a machine in orbit that Soundwave made that will let him control the tides, that will then let him like overflow a canyon to create like a constant flow for like a hydroelectric plant. I assume he said it was for unlimited energy, but he didn't say how he was going to collect it. I assume it's a hydroelectric plant, which, by the way, There's a few hundred waterfalls in the world you could just plant one at. You don't need this massively convoluted plan, which will also have catastrophic, repercussions on the planet at the same time. Uh, you could just do this. I often wonder this. Like, why doesn't, like, if Megatron just wants energy so badly, why doesn't he just put a solar collector next to a sun? Why doesn't he just put a paddle wheel in a river? You know? He's got the tech to do that. He could have done it a million times over, repowered 10 Cybertrons by now. No. He's a cartoon villain, so he has to steal it. He has to go through like the most like chaotic, destructive ways of getting energy that he can. But that's the B plot, and it has to be Bruticus. That's the whole crux of this. He's got Menasor, he's got Devastator, but it's Bruticus that has to go through with this plan. So it has to be the Combaticons. It's a weird episode. The plot itself is, if you haven't guessed by now, the episode itself is very, very poorly thought out. We spend most of our time with the humans that you're looking at right now. Story is they are college kids. And Martin and Roland feel they're too smart, too good to be in this class, so they get put on an assignment. You get a blue ribbon in the science fair, or you're flunking the class. Elise gets assigned to them by the teacher, so they have at least one voice of reason, and then they spend the entire episode ignoring the voice of reason. These two. The first introduction we get to these two is that the professor has this laser on his desk. He turns the laser on. The laser shoots a beam that goes through a stack of books and through a wall. Because these two overpowered it as a prank. A prank that could have murdered anybody in the path of the laser. Oh, but they're just, they're just boys being boys, it's that kind of attitude to it. They carry these look at the expressions. They permanently have these smug, arrogant expressions drawn on them the entire episode, which is infuriating. They spend the entire episode literally dragging Elise into one bad situation after another, and well, she's kind of the reason B.O.T ended up with Brawl's brain, because she found it and she planted it in. They are the ones who escalated it every time. Every situation, they escalated the problem. And by the end, didn't have the solution for the problem. At least did. So, episode ends. Oh, spoilers, by the way, for a 37-year-old episode of Transformers. Spoiler alert. Elise is the one who comes up with the idea of, once Bruticus is on board, once the Disruptor is in front of the Autobot base, Elise is the one who has the idea to use Teletran 1 to remote control B.O.T to override the laser and then set it to overload, which conveniently there is a button on it that just says overload, because when you're building a doomsday weapon to destroy your enemies, you want to make sure it can easily be self-destructed at a moment's notice, even if it's by accident. So, when the episode end rolls around, their kids are given credit because they did warn the Autobots of the Decepticon plot. But when Elise wants to build another robot, these two boys who have learned nothing, who did not get their comeuppance whatsoever, and who are pretty much just these two jerks that just completely ignored the one sensible person who was actually, resourceful and useful in this episode. The episode ends with them taping her mouth shut and dragging her off again. That was the comedic stinger to end the episode on. It's uncomfortable, is what it is. I would say it was a misogynistic depiction, if not for she was the one who saved the day, but also because I looked up the writer. I wanted to actually see if there were other female characters treated similarly in other writings that he did. The man went on to write episodes of Kim Possible. So, forgive the pun. But I don't think that misogynistic thing is possible. So I don't think it's that. I think it's literally just it's a story of the time. It's the cliches and the tropes of the time. It is the boys being boys and just having a good old fun time, attempting to murder your teacher by overloading a laser beam, that kind of like it's just the boys being the boys and the girls just getting in the way of our fun. It's that kind of old trope. So it comes across, unfortunately, it does come across kind of in a sexist way. I don't think it was intentional, though. So it's just a really bad plot. The good part to this episode is the fact that it was, at the very least, a showcase for Swindle and his personality, because the individual combiner characters, they never get anything, Uh, they never get, like outside of just like a random one-off where, maybe Slingshot's got an attitude that day or something like that. But yeah, it was nice that Swindle, who actually has a unique persona amongst the Decepticons, actually got to be highlighted here. The whole episode was supposed to highlight Bruticus, but it made him look pathetic. The first shot we get, which is, by the way, the animation in this episode, not great. Proportions are way out of whack on some of these. The layout is really weird on some shots, especially in the opening. Weird things happen in animation that for no reason. In the course of this episode, when Bruticus first forms, Defensor shoots him down and literally destroys him in one shot, all except for Swindle. And then when the Combaticons are finally fully restored, when they try to battle, they just kind of stand there and take shots. So if they're trying to make Bruticus look cool to sell the toy, they did a terrible job. In a weird way, Brawl was actually a far more capable fighter as Bot than he is as Brawl, because he actually managed to duck and weave around Autobots and like actually outmaneuver them quite a bit. It's a bizarre twist. It's bad. Now, conceptually, I don't think it's a bad episode. I think, execution is poor in this case. And just the treatment of the human characters, the one good human character is railroaded in favor of two. I don't know. I want to use profanity to describe them. I will hold off. And we'll move on to Carnage in C minor. The A plot of this episode is essentially there is a planet that is basically their entire society revolves around musical harmonies. It's in their buildings, it's in their design, it's in their clothing, it's in their language. And Galvatron wants to capture the perfect audio that they have, which will create an extremely powerful sonic weapon. Essentially, this whole episode exists to give Blaster and Soundwave, two toys that were popular enough to continue being produced. I've said it in the past and I misspoke. There's 3 toys that got produced for 3 years. Bumblebee, Soundwave, and Starscream. So this was Soundwave's episode in Season 3 to keep his toy sales up. There's a lot to unpack in this episode. The B plot, by the way, is just some internal strife amongst these aliens, the Eurythmians, which is not a heart condition. Eurythma is the planet they're from. And they have, like I said, they have very, harmonizing musical elements to them. They look like what they are on screen. They all look like everyone on the planet. Everyone in the planet is in a D&D game, and they all rolled up bards. Every single one of them. And none of them rolled up good bards. But they did come up with the interesting names of Allegra, which was not a medicine right now, Basso Profundo, Zebopskadano, and other noises you make when you're having a stroke. And speaking of stroke, this is animated by ACOM, by the way. So, the animation quality is just like down. This is one of the worst episodes in animation in the entirety of the series. I would argue, I would even bet to you this is the episode with the most animation errors of the entire series. I'm willing to bet that. At the very least, The animation errors page on TF Wiki is like it's like 2 pages long, and I'm like at a full HD screen here. It's a lot. There's a lot of bad errors. This is the one where like they infamously have 7 Constructicons combining. This is the one where they infamously have Broadside just like turning into a boat just a crash on top of Devastator. This one where infamously Brawn comes back to life and fights off Devastator alongside another Constructicon, among a million other really weird animation errors. It's a terrible episode to watch. It's painful to watch. It's painful to listen to as well. So the Eurythmias, the whole gimmick to them is that when they speak in musical harmony. So like they're speaking English, but they're always like sing speaking, you know? Allegra, where are you going? Things like that. And the way they portray it, no one can understand them. They're portraying it like it's a completely different language that Blaster and Soundwave have to translate, even though we have full scenes of just the Eurythmians talking to each other in English that the audience can fully comprehend. So what you get are tons of these scenes where all the characters are speaking to the Transformers, and like Ultra Magnus is looking at Blaster and going, "What did he say?" So, he said. So here's how the scene goes: Allegra's not here. What did he say? He said Allegra's not here. Repeat for about 10 minutes. It's an extremely frustrating episode to listen to, not only because the musical harmony gimmick is not a pleasant noise, but also because you have to hear the same dialogue and explanations over and over and over and over and over again. And it felt like the script called for them called them to just like sing notes, like oh, like that kind of thing, and then Blaster would translate that into English, and that would make sense. But then they went, we have to have scenes where the Eurythmians are talking amongst themselves. There's no translator, so kids buy these toys that can't actually read yet, so we can't do subtitles. Let's just have them all speaking English. That's what it felt like. By the way, the episodes, the resolution to the episode, by the way, is obviously, or else there wouldn't be an episode. Obviously, Galvatron and Soundwave get their hands on all of the musical harmony to create this like super weapon, this music super weapon in Soundwave, and Blaster eliminates the weapon by hitting an erase button on the front of Soundwave. Like the tape buttons on Soundwave's design actually work, and one of them is just an erase button. You imagine at any point he could have just hit the erase button and just completely wiped out Ravage's brain? At any point, like one stray shot, one stray kick to the gut, and Soundwave loses one of his minions. Like, poor Rumble inside just gets lobotomized. I don't know. It's stupid. It's beyond stupid. The concept itself is fine. If you're doing an episode for Blaster and Soundwave, okay. An alien race that revolves around musical harmony. I can actually get behind that if it's executed well. The execution in here is handled like an actual execution, because I'd rather have my head chopped off than watch this episode again. The visual of the planet, they say, this is all based on musical harmony, like perfect musical harmony. The place looks like it looks like if it looks like a malfunctioning 3D printer was making like dioramas for the inside of your aquarium. That's what it looks like. Everything is like twisted and weirdly bent and weird shape. There is no harmony. There's no rhythm to it, the things you associate music with. It's all chaotic. Everything about it is just visually unpleasant, and it's all gray. Like the entire planet is gray. So it just kind of looks like a really weird, twisted up Cybertron. It's... Both of these episodes are terrible, by the way. Both of these episodes are terrible. B.O.T is a badly written episode focusing on really unpleasant characters with an uncomfortable undertone to it. And an overall plot that gives Swindle something to do and characterizes him, but ultimately doesn't pay him off and doesn't make the Combaticons look cool, which was the whole point of the episode, in order to sell the toys. Megatron's plot is absolutely inane and overly complicated. And yeah, there's animation errors that are pretty infamous as well. All the Combaticons driving down the road, including the two flying ones, all the same size as each other. That's where that shot comes from. Carnage in C minor, on the other hand, is a decent enough concept executed extraordinarily poorly, with very poor decisions being made in how to portray it, both in the setting and in the character delivery. So, in my opinion, if you gotta pick one, you know what? I am actually gonna go against the wiki here. Carnage in C minor is my worst episode of all time. All right. But I can find enjoyable points about. It's at very least spotlighting Swindle. At the very least, we have characterization of Swindle, which carried him through and actually made him one of the more standout combiner characters of G1. It's why Derek Wyatt liked him so much. It's why we got animated Swindle, because the show made him stand out well. In this episode, at least. Carnage in C minor fails tremendously. It's an episode designed to sell two toys that have already been around for at least a year. And it doesn't really do a great job of presenting them either, because they spend most of the time just translating something we can already understand. The animation is what kills it. It's just hideous to watch and look at. Even if it was well animated, the visuals are just entirely unpleasant. Outside of maybe the character designs of the Eurythmas themselves, everything else is just like hideous. And no. I could stand to watch B.O.T again at some point. But Carnage in C minor, it was true when I did the TJTV, it's true now. It is, to me, the worst episode of G1, period. I cannot find a single redeeming quality to the show. So, there you go. There you go. This is basically just me spending about 22 minutes or so going, TF Wiki isn't always right. Though it is all based on opinion. If you think B.O.T is worse, you're perfectly welcome. If you think another G1 episode is worse than these two, that is a completely valid opinion as well. But by and large, it's always been down to these two episodes. And for me, Carnage is literal carnage. So, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for joining me in this little debate. If you don't want to leave, which episode you think is worse in the comments, do this. Leave another debate in the comments. What is something that I should, not Frenzy is blue, Rumble is red, or anything like that. Though that is viable, I will admit. But leave something else. More of these, versus format videos, I wouldn't mind doing if I had more ideas for them. So, let me know, and I will see you next time. Guys, I am facing the most powerful enemy any YouTuber can face, the algorithm, and I need your help to defeat him. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. Every time you do, we attack that algorithm and we drive it back until it can no longer defeat this channel. Thank you very much.